I'm talking with John Petrie, who's CISO of Solutionary. Welcome, John.
Thank you, appreciate it.
So this is a new role for you at Solutionary.
This is a new role for Solutionary itself, and
right, yeah.
it's my third time in that kind of a slot, various companies. So it's an exciting time as we continue our growth.
Yeah. How are you finding it different, just the prospect of establishing the security controls and all the rest inside a large security provider?
So for the most part, the security providers are pretty solid as far as internal controls are concerned. Obviously, when you grow, you've got to make some changes and move some controls around, maybe add some controls as you get growth. But I think for the most part, the controls are solid. The program overall, though, I think needs to move forward. It needs to make adjustments based on the world view right now. And I think that's going to be one of my next strategy, laying down the information security strategy over the next 100 days. And I think, other than that, I think it'll be an ISO type program using that framework moving forward. And then we'll tie it into NIST and FedRAMP and a couple other items.
I know a lot of people who use Solutionary's products or any managed security service are very concerned about the ability to demonstrate that their data, even though it's mostly logged in alerts and not private data, but they're very concerned that the people who have access to that data have been properly background checked,
right.
and there's monitoring, et cetera, of them. So I imagine this role is going to make them feel more comfortable even.
It will, and it'll address the issues that they're facing. And having been a CISO for a company, a $3 billion company, I think one of the things that we're going to do rather quickly is to state the program goals and objectives, to show the framework. We want to get that information out to our clients. And it's a valid concern on their part. They need to make sure their data is safe and secure, that we're controlling the access to it, that other clients aren't able to access that data via any of our portals. And I think all that is solid. But we need to get that message out. We need to help them understand. We need to help the other CISOs that we're doing business with provide them metrics and other things that they can take to their boards and their executive team. So I think all that's within our at least my 100-day plan, and I'm 60 days into it. And so I think you're going to start seeing some messaging come out. Our clients certainly will, and it'll help them identify and connect the dots for their auditors, for their regulators, if they're a regulated industry. And I think that's going to be something that'll get some traction with our clients.
What attracted you to Solutionary?
Yeah, so that's a great question. I think Solutionary as a MSSP is a solid organization. I used them as I was once a client before I moved on. And so I'm very comfortable with their products and their solutions, and specifically their delivery model. And so I think that was very helpful as I was looking at what areas of security that I could move out as a CISO into a service provider organization. And there were several that during my tenure I moved into those areas. So I had an internal knowledge, if you will, from a client perspective about Solutionary. That coupled with the fact that I think the movement of Solutionary into the NTT family, which occurred almost 3 years ago now, maybe just a little bit shy of 3 years, provides a lot more depth and capabilities for Solutionary. And so what I'll leave you here with is that Solutionary is no longer just an MSSP. It's still core business for us. It's a very solid solution set across managed security services, but it's not everything. And we're going to move into a more full security life cycle arena, and there'll be information coming about in the next few months.
Okay, but mostly service related, you're not coming out with a new firewall.
No, okay. No. And I wouldn't think of Solutionary as a product company or hesitate to say VAR, but that's not what this is about. The NTT security is really about integrating all the security components within NTT operational companies and combining those together to provide service offerings. So it's more about the service, the solutions, all the other things that we normally do as far as running a managed service, but also things like company lost their CISO, can we have a senior person come in and step in and do that role while they perhaps find another person to fill that role? Those kinds of things are all within the strategy realm, and so we're going to move very quickly into that area, providing advisory services, strategic advisory services, discussions with the boards of directors, et cetera.
So NTT has acquired a number of MSSPs around the world, but kept them organizationally separate.
Right.
And,
right.
But now there's some future, they'll be pulling that together into a more coherent.
Yeah, I think we'll be cautious, obviously, because we're kind of in a quiet period as we're moving forward. But the Japanese, I think, have NTT has looked at the playbook from Verizon's purchase of CyberTrust,
Right,
from
yep.
BT's purchase of Counterpane, even from IBM's purchase of ISS, as we did talked about.
Singtel's purchase of Trustwave.
Correct.
Yep.
And so I think they've read that playbook and said, you know what, this is where it broke down. And so one of the reasons I think they've allowed the security portions of the company to operate independently for a period of time is to do the planning necessary to really make this a security line of business versus applying a telco kind of framework on top of the security business. I mean, that's always been a problem set when telco buys security. I think NTT is taking the right approach, the right strategy moving forward to build the line of business separately with a separate model.
That's cool. Even as you were describing your role, I was thinking, that high-level strategic CISO services could be
Right.
something that you offer and would be in high demand too.
Oh, I think so. I think I do a lot of discussions with my colleagues across the world, and I think there's opportunities there to help them help their programs. Right? It's about the client. It's about the end customer. It's about what they're doing. A CISO is not going to be able to hire 50 people, 100 people. It depends on what business. I mean, if you have all the money in the world, it's maybe easier. But when you don't, you've got to commoditize some of your areas. You've got to make a decision based on risk. What are you going to move around? And when you talk about strategy discussions, that's not necessarily about technical security. That's about, hey, how much of the dollars am I going to put in? Am I going to include security as part of an overall product sell? Is it going to cost me an extra 2 cents to implement security across this part of the business, right? And preparing that discussion for the board of directors. In conjunction with that, I think the board of directors, the directors themselves, are getting smarter. They're understanding security a lot more. They sit on multiple boards, and they may sit on a retail board and come over to a security board, or vice versa, and they're passing that data on to their colleagues, so they're becoming more smarter. And so I think CISOs have to become more business oriented very quickly. It's a totally different conversation when I talk to CISO about technical issues, how we're going to map a log file to a correlation engine, for example, as opposed to, hey, we're going to manage your information, and we're going to provide you data and alerts and actual information that you can make a decision, actionable intelligence, for example. I think that's a change that's occurring as we speak. I think CISOs are getting more business-oriented, CISOs, CSOs.
Sure. And has the 60 days you've been with Solutionary been enough for you to interact with customers?
Yeah, so we took a little bit of time before the announcement went out, but in a couple weeks into it, the official announcement went out on the wire, and of course my phone blew up. It was somewhat of a surprise to some of my colleagues. And so my third week there, I was actually at client sites already. And so that's going to be a challenge because, I've got an internal program to mature a little bit, to present that. We've got analysts to talk to about where the company's going, and I've got to meet the client expectations as well. So, short answer is yes, but I think that's going to increase as our story gets out.
Yeah, it seems to be part of the role when you're at a security vendor and the CISO. You have to engage at the CISO level.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep. So, what are the trends that you've seen in, obviously the threat actors have upped their game. They're engaged in a lot more targeted attacks.
Right.
So they'll, maybe one of your customers, they need data on that customer's network. So they're going to just bring out all their big weapons.
Right.
What's the trend in the MSSP space to counter that level of targeted attack? So much beyond log management now.
Yeah, I think it's more of a proactive approach to say zero-day attacks or other attacks, and identifying that early on in their process. So when you think about methodologies like the kill chain, for example, from Lockheed, and you take a look at that, there's certain parts of that process, if you will, that you really have to gain more intelligence and information about early on. You can't wait for your log files to click over an alert. Okay, I think that's a difference. It's also a different process and methodology, thought process, if you will, that CISOs used to take in a different approach, and that is putting all your IDS and intrusion stuff and notifying you on your internal networks. Now you've got cloud, you've got mobile, you've got the attack space has changed, right? And so I think that having security intelligence, information that's turned out from that intelligence to actionable information is the key here. And so you'll see that buzzword moving forward pretty quickly across the security space now. Security intelligence, threat intelligence, but it's becoming more than that. And to get to the final part of the question here, I think it's security data analytics that really is going to move things forward for my colleagues, right? And that means that not only are they looking at the normal picture that they're used to seeing, log file, there's a fire from, an IDS fires an alert out, all the points that they're doing, and we don't necessarily want to tell them to stop doing all these things. All of these things are necessary, but it's combining all of that internal information, then connecting and correlating with other information. Example, NTT is 40% of the telecom, right? That's a huge chunk. Is that a big deal? No, but when you talk about clients and customers, any outside information that you can correlate together to help them get an advanced picture through threat intelligence, and then on top of that, do the analytics for them. I was a pretty big shop. I had about 34 folks working for me, and I could not keep up. They could not keep up with all of the pieces of information that had to be analyzed. And so we've got to start thinking about security data analytics moving forward. And I think that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to combine platforms through the integration, and that will provide us with two really specific platforms. A global security platform, which will be advancement into our current product set, and then a threat intel platform that'll drive that portion, and then we'll have those two talk together. And so without letting too much loose here, I think that is going to focus in then with the end result being some form of security data analytics that we'll do on behalf of our clients. I think that's going to be very powerful for them to take advantage of that. And it's going to help them out. They won't have to provide the resources, both assets and people resources, to get that done.
It's always seemed to me with all this talk, especially inside Washington, about information sharing, that you have some of the Lockheeds of the world belonging to various ISACs or
Right.
the DIB, and they are sharing information and meetings and passing stuff back and forth. But any member of the community of customers of an MSSP is taking advantage of information sharing, because if you see an attack going on in one part of the world, then you discover a control or a protection, then you can deploy it before it hits.
That's right. That's correct. And to be clear, we also sit on those,
of course,
information sharing organizations. So combining all of that data together, if I throw all that data by itself into a CISO's organization, they're going to get overwhelmed. What we need to do is analyze that and bring back really the abnormalities and the anomalies to them that, hey, you've got a problem, match them up to what that threat may look like. It could be a zero-day threat or a new threat that nobody's seen yet, but we've got enough correlation that's occurred that we can provide that view. Obviously, it's a decision for the client to make on what they want, what actionable pieces they want to do. In some cases, I think we're going to have enough intelligence, system intelligence to make automated changes based on the intel, right? Yeah. And that'll be client by client basis, right? Sure. Because the business is going to have to, we're going to have to understand the business before we start throwing out automated decisions and telling a system to shut down or close this port or whatever.
And we're going to need to because the attacks are going to be automated.
Exactly right. And so we've got to prepare for that now, and we're already doing that. So
good deal. Very exciting times.
Yeah,
Thank
it is.
you.
It's very, very good. So.